These booklets will help, but it's not going to cover everything because these booklets are just like, they're just taking some sample questions and testing your knowledge. They can't do it all, right? Because this was just an exam and they cannot ask everything of that unit. So be prepared for more. So I would strongly encourage you to flip through your booklets, look through your tests, make sure your study sheets are updated and all that stuff. So my plan is to go through that pink sheet a little bit, the guidelines. Just going to give you a few formulas, I guess review formulas, and then we'll go into this yellow booklet, okay? So if you have that, if you have this pink guideline, great. If not, just maybe write in this booklet somewhere, right? Just open the front, and we're going to go straight to home finance. And one thing right off the bat that these bullets do not cover would be land transfer tax. So I'm going to focus primarily today on home finance and statistics. When it comes to geometry, just go look up some of the videos maybe, or whatever you need to do to review geometry. Jiro, do you mind closing the blind behind you? Thank you. I think it'll be better for us to see there. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit to this side here. The biggest portion is always mortgages, because most likely, unless you get a major inheritance or you win the lottery, you're not going to be able to pay it off in one shot, right? So mortgages are really just big loans towards real estate. And these formulas, for some of you, it's just going to be a review. For others, just reiterating, right? So to find the payment, right? If you ever want to find the payment, you just take the price of the house or whatever it is valued minus a down payment. Will there always be a down payment? It could be missing, right? So some of you got stuck on that the other day. You were trying to make up a down payment that just wasn't there. There was a time when I bought my first house where you didn't need a down payment, zero down payment, right? So it is possible. And then you're going to have to use a table rate, which you obviously get from a table, and divide it by 1,000. This table rate, mark my words, does not show up ever again. That's the only time you're going to use it to calculate your monthly payment. Don't use it in any of the other formulas because it's going to be wrong. Then the other big formula is total interest, right? And the total interest is simply taking the payment, multiplying it by 12, multiplying by the number of years. So it could be 15, 20, 25, right? And we subtract the mortgage from it. And you're like, where is the mortgage? The mortgage is this here. The mortgage is the loan you're going to need to pay off the rest. So this is what I call mortgage. So it's in this formula, you have the mortgage right here. And that shows up again here. And also you need to understand what this would be. This is total paid to bank. So some of you, just as soon as you see the word total, you think it's the total interest that I'm asking for. Not necessarily. If it's only asking for the total you paid the bank, you would just perform this calculation right here. If it's asking for the total interest, you need to figure out this and subtract the mortgage which you have over here, right? So keep that in mind. Also, notice that the lowercase interest, which is the interest you pay on just one payment, it's your mortgage times the interest rate as a percent, right? So you keep it as a percent, you divide it by 100 to get it into a decimal. All of that divided by 12. This is only the first month. This is total interest here, right? Total interest. And you also need to remember that the payment, every single payment is split up into a principal and the interest, which is the lowercase I. Right? So if you have that, if you calculate this lowercase I, you can just subtract it from the payment to get your principal, right? There's this relationship between these three components. Right? If you have any one of them, you can find, or sorry, two of them, any two, you can find out the other one. Okay? And that's it for mortgages, basically. Let's do this. I'm just thinking of to reduce finance charge. What is finance charge really? The total interest, right? If you want to reduce, please don't say go get another house or something. It's like, what can you do that's within your power now that you own the house to reduce it, right? So you could increase, make additional payments. You can not increase, but reduce amortization. And that's just a fancy word for taking less time to pay it off, right? Like if the faster you pay something off, the less interest you pay overall. That's just how it works. If you pay longer, yes, the payment goes down, but not your interest, not the total interest. Increase the payment, right? So increase monthly payment. So if you actually say a bank charges you $700 every 2 weeks, you say I want to pay $750 or $800, right? You make it bigger. So anything like that will help you there. I will make this like a little cloud. To reduce the payment, what can you do to reduce the payment? That's when you take longer to pay off, right? Take longer to pay. Use your own words if you forget the actual term, right? Take longer to pay off. Increase amortization, right? You can increase down payment. By the way, this also would have worked up here. If you increase your down payment, it brings down the total interest you pay. Take longer to pay off, increase down payment. I'm just going to leave it at that. 2 is good. Shop for a lower interest rate. The reality is that it's harder to do that. That's not within your control. Most interest rates are the same. When the interest rate is 2.25, it almost doesn't matter where you go. It stays the same. The rest, I'm just going to say see notes. But I'm just briefly going to talk about it. So I'm going to go over to this side. So basically split this into 2 columns, right? And focus on the right side a little bit. So for GDSR, right? Greater than 32%. If it's greater than 2%, mortgage is not approved. Okay, that's basically one of the main concepts about the GDSR, the gross debt service ratio, is that your housing cost is going to be about a third. So if it's over 32%, you're not going to be approved. Okay, and so make sure that the payment, heat, property tax, and income, right, all in monthly amounts. If any one of them, right, is not, it throws the whole thing off. You're going to get a ridiculously low number or a ridiculously high number, right? So watch out for that. So yearly, annual, anything like that, you need to divide it by 12 to get it. Okay? Property taxes. Big concept here. So basically what you want to do is you take the portioned assessment and you multiply it by a mill rate, but that mill rate always needs to be divided by 1,000. If you don't do that, it's going to be off. Okay, and then you add, if there's another one, if they give you another mill rate, you go times that mill rate over 1,000, and you would continue that for as many mill rates as you're given. If you're only given one mill rate, you're only going to have to perform this once. If there are 2 mill rates, right, education and municipal, you might have to do it twice, right? And any local improvements, if there are any, that's based on the frontage of the house, minus any credits, right? That is going to be total tax, right? And you need to know, I will go up for this, just highlight it. I'm going to leave this up to you because these are just a matter of reading up on it, right? The pros and the cons of buying or like owning a home or renting, right? That's important that you know that. Examples of one-time costs versus ongoing. You should have at least 2 ongoing and 2 one-time, right? So make sure you should know the difference between preventative maintenance and emergency repairs, right? And I'll give you an example. Preventative maintenance would be go up on your roof every fall, after every fall, clean the gutters so that it's clean, it can run off, right? An emergency repair, because you didn't do that preventative maintenance, would be repairing your whole roof or replacing the whole roof. Don't just say roof, say I'm having to replace the whole roof or re-shingle the roof or something like that. So there is a preventative part and there's emergency repair as a result of not doing the preventative maintenance. Another one would be replacing filters regularly. Don't just say filters, say replace them regularly. And what would happen if you don't? Costly repairs to the furnace, or the furnace needs to be replaced or something like that. Okay, but be specific. I don't want to see, like, what are some costs associated with home ownership maintenance? It doesn't work. It's too vague. It's too broad. You need to narrow it down. So if you go maintenance, just say replacing filters regularly, or replacing the batteries on the smoke detector, or redoing this weather stripping around doors and windows, stuff like that. Like, be very specific. Don't just, there should be evidence that you took this course. Okay? Know how to reduce heating or electricity / water costs. And the keyword there would be to upgrade your faucets and shower heads to the newer ones. They use less water. Do you know how they do that using less water? They introduce air. They put like a bubble maker into the water, so it mixes the water with air, so there's less water coming out. And it's subtle, but it makes a big difference. Flushing your toilet. It used to be about a third of your water bill was flushing toilets, because there was like 20 liters or something in every tank, right? So every time you flushed the toilet, 20 liters of clean drinking water went down the drain. Now, you know the dual flush ones, right? The ones that half flush, full flush, right? They only use 4 to 6 liters. Can you imagine that? 20 liters is almost like a big bucket of water versus 4 liters is just a jug of milk, right? So that is something you can do to reduce your water costs and so forth. So just read up that area, that section in the booklet, okay? Let's go to stats. Statistics. I made a mistake there. So we'll fix that. First of all, you need to know mean, median, mode, of course, and range. Also, watch out for these questions. I did quite a few of them. And you need to know that median is always in the middle, right? It's that middle value. And half of the data is below, half above. I want to talk about percentile rank here. Percentile rank, it says remember to percentage next to the PR answer. That's wrong. Okay, you should not have a percentage there. No percentage next to answer. If you're calculating the percentile rank, you should not have a percentage next to the answer. That's very important. Weighted mean, we had 2 scenarios. Repetition versus getting the final score on your test. Look those up. We did both of them in the booklet. I made you write down a nice heading for every single case. Trimmed mean, you need to be able to identify the outlier and calculating the trimmed mean, right? And the key is there might only be one outlier on the upper or lower end, but the trimmed mean, you trim both ends, right? Higher and lower. Explain why the trimmed mean might be a better choice. And it's usually because the outlier represents human error or something out of the ordinary that happened, right? Also know how to work backwards. So look up in your booklets how that is done. You will always see working backwards as you're going through your notes. But let's talk about percentile rank real quick here. Percentile rank, it calculates the, oh, you can't see that there. My bad, there you go. It calculates the percentage of values that are below the one considered. Right? So, example, there's no Patrick in here, right? Okay, then I'm going to use Patrick. Patrick's test score of 75% puts him in the 60th percentile. Write that down, because that's basically, this is what I want you to understand, right? So Patrick's test score of 75%, so he scored 75% on the test. And percentile rank is about ranking, right? Where do you compare to the rest? Puts him in the 60th percentile. What does that mean? It means that because the 60th percentile, right, that's your answer, it means that 60% of students scored less than Patrick. Oh, Patrick with a K, not CK. And that would have been 75%, right? That's what that means. So you gotta make a distinction between the actual test score and the percentile or the percentile rank. They mean different things, right? So don't mix them up. So basically this, if you're anything above the 50th percentile, you're above most of the class, right? Because 50th, 51st, 52nd, all the way to 99, if you're at the 99th percentile, most people scored below you, right? If you're below the 50th percentile, you're right there, more people now above you than below you, right? So if Hellebuck's saving percentage or whatever puts him in the 20th percentile, he's not doing so well, right? Because only 20% of goalies are doing less, are saving less than him. Percentile rank, that's it. And there's going to be an example in a bit, so we'll actually do the calculations in the booklet. Okay, that's why I'm not giving you an example here. I think that's it. That's it for now. Let's jump into the exam booklet. So the yellow one. So home finance is the very first unit in this booklet. Where are your booklets, guys? Get them out. This is the yellow one. On Friday, I also made a third booklet available, this blue one here. So if you want more practice, you can grab that one. I posted the key already for that. The more, the better. All right. I'm thinking I'll go over it. Okay. The average monthly heating cost for Rong's house is $265. Calculate the total expected heating cost for 4 years. So this is almost like the total you paid to the. So total, you would just go payment, and it's 12 months in a year, right? Times 4 years. That should be a home run. Okay, so it's basically 265 times 48. So over the 4 years, you paid $12,720 in heating costs. It's a little bit on the high side, so it must be a bigger house. But, you know, you'd be paying anywhere between $1,000 to $1,500 a year on heating, right? So that's especially this year, as cold as it has been. Next, the heating cost will be reduced by 35% if Wrong installs a heated floor, right, or heated floors. Calculate his total expected heating cost for 4 years with the heated floors. This is going to be my approach. I'm going to take the amount that I calculated in A, and I'm going to find 35% of that. Does that make sense? Right? Finding 35% of the heating cost so far. So 12,720 times 0.35, 4,452 in savings. Okay, we have to clarify this. So it's saying that calculate the heating cost, not the savings, right? So heating would be 12,720 minus the savings, right? That's 8,268. That would be the heating cost over the 4 years. So the 35%, this would have given you 1 mark already, and then subtracting and getting the actual heating cost is another mark. You could have done it differently. You could have figured out 35% of the payment and then subtract it from the payment and then go the longer route, but usually when it's an A/B question, you can just go off of the previous. Go ahead. We're good? Next. Insurance. That's the one thing that I also forgot to put in there. Let's see how well you do with insurance. Give it a try real quick if you haven't done it already. Would you be able to do this question? If you don't have the booklet, grab some loose leaf and just read this question. See if you. Okay. Insurance. Let's write out the full formula. This would be a table rate plus table rate divided by 1,000 times overage times 1.0. No, sorry. 110 comes first, right? Times 1.07. You need to know what every single part of this formula represents. This would be your taxes. This would give you a $200 deductible. This part right here. This table rate covers up to $200,000, right? 200K. And this is over 200K. That number right there. So that's what this formula represents. So we're told we're in Winnipeg. This is the value of our house. We're going over, you can tell already. It's comprehensive, $500 deductible. And they want the annual premium, right, before taxes. So we don't worry about the taxes. And because we want a $500 deductible, we don't need to perform the times 1.10. So we're really just down to this. So let's go ahead and find that rate. Let's see if you got it. Winnipeg, comprehensive. We got to go all the way down because we're at 200,000. So that we write down the 771, and we also write down the 350. All right. So I'm going to write down the 771, and I'm going to write down the 350 over 1,000. And how much am I over by? I can do that on the side here, right? You take the amount you want to insure, you take away 200,000 from it, and so you're over by 15,000. Square brackets are not really needed anymore. So on the home finance test, this was done fairly well. But when you typed it in, I felt like you typed it in one shot and then you made a mistake there. So do it in steps, right? Do this part here separately. So 350 times 15,000 divided by 1,000. That's 5,250, right? And then you add them up. In this case, all you have to do is add it up, right? That's 823.50. That's before taxes. Keep in mind that if you had to perform any one of these steps out here, times 110 times 1.07, that happens after you've dealt with the square brackets, right? So once you get to here, you would multiply by 110 or 1.07 or both, depending on what they're asking for. Okay? Describe one way Stella could reduce her annual insurance premium for this property. Don't say get a new house, get a cheaper house. For this property, right? So the first thing that comes to mind here is she went with comprehensive, reduced to standard, right? Okay, change to a standard policy, right? Versus comprehensive. Just to make sure you're specific here. That's one thing you could have done. This is going to cost you a little bit, but it will also reduce your insurance. Install an alarm system, right? Install an alarm system. Don't say get better credit. You can't just get a better credit overnight, right? Like it takes a while. Don't say stop smoking, right? Because technically, if it's a non-smoker home, you go down like it. You're gonna have to. They might say, well, we'll see about that, right? Like maybe next year. But if you do the alarm system, they will do it immediately. As soon as you show them proof that it has been installed, they will bring it down. Okay. I'm trying to think of another one, but I feel like if you have two, that's enough. Okay, if it had been a $200 deductible, you could have reduced it to a right, like you could have brought it down by going with a $500 deductible, but that wasn't the case. This table honestly should be a slam dunk, right? Hopefully. We know that our payment is equal to this plus this, right? So these two will always equal to the payment. The payment, this box here, it's 1,034. It should never change, right? The payment doesn't change. And if you don't believe me, you add up these two here, 709.12 plus 324.88. You get 1,034 there, right? So we're good. Go ahead, Kristen. Next here, the principal. How are we going to do that? There are two ways actually. The easiest is probably to just subtract it here. I don't have the key in front of me, so I will 710.34. That's always put a dollar sign, and you do not want to lose silly marks for units, okay? I had a little bit too much rounding so far, right? As I'm marking I'm actually done yours already. I'm just gonna have to update it. And you will find out all together when everything is said and done. Another way of doing this, folks, because you need to have another way, is subtracting these two. Right? If you subtracted these two, you should get that, right? Right? And our last one here, we just go 324, right? We subtract the 324.88 from it. And we get, oops. That's 188,774.46. Please don't show the work like I just did here. I just do it outside here somewhere. I would just say fill this in and get it that way, right? How did we get that number? We went 1,034 minus 710.34. This stays the same. Okay, so you have that. Next. Okay, 1 mark. Okay, you think, whatever, I'm just going to write something. Hopefully this does it, right? These kind of questions are, when I'm just talking and pretending to waste time about various aspects of a house, I'm actually trying to prepare you for home ownership and also knowing that there will be questions like these. So Albert comes home from his vacation, finds that his basement has flooded. Describe, so not just state, describe, like actually describe it. One maintenance task Albert could have done to reduce the risk of his basement flooding. We don't know why it flooded, it's just flooded, right? So what could we have said, like, what's one thing you could have done to prevent it? Any brave student in here? Might be your last kick at the can here. What could you do to prevent it from flooding? What could have caused it to flood in the first place? Don't be shy. Water tank? Yep. You remember me talking about the hot water tank, I hope, right? Did I talk about the hot water tank? The bottom of the water tank rusts over time. And I can almost guarantee I could put money down, $100, that if you ever own a house, within 10 years of you replacing it, you will probably have a leak. Hopefully it's just a small leak, but you will notice, where's that water coming from? And then you will have to do something real quick. What's the first thing you should be doing when you notice that? Call 911. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't call 911. You go to your main water line and there should be a valve, right? You just close it real quick. You should know where it is at all times. You should tell anybody that lives in the house where it is. So my wife knows, right? It's like you gotta go under the stairs and just like, it's hard to find, but she knows where it is because I told her if anything ever happens, you need to turn that off right away, okay? So let's talk about this. One thing could have been is check hot water tank for rust/corrosion, right? That's one thing that Albert could have done. What else can cause flooding in the basement? Maybe some of you ever had that happen to you in the past. I don't know. I hope not, but it has happened. What else can? No, sewage backup. In 1996-97, the big flood. That's what happened to a lot of houses. Yes. So. Yes. Okay. You know that I get too excited when you talk about housing, right? Because I want you to save yourself a lot of money. I thought you were going to give me a good answer, Cash, there, but yeah, go ahead. Can you listen carefully here? If this is your basement, right, and this is your house up here, yes, there's a drain somewhere here that hooks up to the main city line, sewer, right? When there's flooding, the sewer line, right, they just can't handle it, so it will slowly back up into your house. You don't want that. That's nasty, right? So what they have done is there's a valve you put in. Yeah, they actually have to like break some of this concrete. They cut this line up and they put like a little valve in there that only allows the water flow away from your house, but it blocks it from coming into your house. It's called a backup valve. It's hard to check if you have it, so maybe get someone like a plumber to check it. Most newer houses have that already built in because a lot of houses got damaged due to that. Okay. So install a backup valve. What else? We've got two already, two answers. Anything else? Come on. Broken pipe, yeah. Leaky faucet. My buddy who lives outside the city, they have well water. That water is very corrosive, a lot more than the water we have in the city. And so your faucets, they actually rust. And so he was like gonna close it. It was leaking already for a while, so he was gonna close it, and he overturned it, and the whole thing just started. It was gushing out water right into the ceiling. So he had to quickly run and turn off the water. So yes, uh, like faucets, right? Check or replace faucets. Okay. And the other one is important. This is what you can actually prevent. Make sure that the soil around your house or the landscape, right? Make sure that it's sloped away from the home. If you see the sides kind of like doing this, you need to fill in. You need to get some fill and make sure that the water runs away from your home. It's very important, especially in the spring, because the snow melts, right? And you don't want it to run down the side walls of your house. I think we've covered it pretty good. So moving on. So what I was trying to do here is be creative. Don't just say check the water or something like that, right? Be creative, be specific, right? It could have been due to a storm and that Albert did not make sure that the water sloped away from your home, right? Anyways, maybe there was a crack in the basement wall foundation. He didn't repair that in time. You can go on and on and on. As long as you're specific, you will get the mark, trust me. Okay, Kelly's statement of demand for taxes is shown below. I want you to know that this means property taxes. Okay, don't be scared of that. It's just the taxes. Calculate the municipal taxes and the total taxes due. So they want the municipal and the total here. And they have a nice chart. So watch that. There's a mill rate here. There's a mill rate there. There's a mill rate there. This mill rate is they already calculated the taxes for that one. So education taxes is given. You just need to calculate for this one. And remember that a mill rate is always divided by 1,000. Okay? So don't just multiply it by that. So you go that times 19.842 divided by 1,000. And that is 2,544.74. So that would give you 1 mark right there. And then you have to make sure you know how to get your total. So you take both of the taxes, right, municipal and education, you add it up, and then you subtract the credit, and that gives you 4,463.22. So I'm marked there as well. So there would be no half marks here. You either get it or you don't. And watch this, there are no improvements, right? No improvements here. Watch out, right? There could be a local improvement, right? Lane paving or lane oiling or anything like that. So that's based on your footage, right? The frontage of your house. All right. Oh, GDSR. Give this a shot. You can do it. You can do this one. This should 3 marks, easy marks. Just try to find a GDSR. Yeah, this one is in a yearly amount, right? I need to divide it by 12. 4,125. Amrinder, is it? Yeah, okay, because I just checked his, that's why I know that that's what it is. Okay, so GDSR, everything is monthly, 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 so we're good. Take your mortgage, your property tax, and heating, divided by the monthly income, all of that times 100. I want to do some stats yet, so that's why I'm rushing a little bit. So you go divided by 4125 times 100. Now you can answer, and this is what? 88, right? 88% if you round it correctly. Will not be approved. You can't leave it like that if you want the full marks, because GDSR is greater than 32%. Right? So this is all it asked for, but just in case, right? I do ask quite often. I do ask that because I want to know if you were paying attention. And what are these called? These three here are called our housing costs, right? The heating, property tax, and payment. That's what GDSR considers housing costs. There are more, but those are the ones they consider. Skip all the way to the back to stats, page 35. There's a very good percentile rank question. I feel like 1 mark doesn't do it justice, but that's what they decided on. All the way to 35. When you do a percentile rank, folks, pay attention to this. This is probably going to be the most helpful thing. Always think of, if you're at the top of the game, right? If you're one of the best, you would be in the 99th, because 99% are below you. If you're kind of like halfway, right? This is me, hopefully. Half of the teachers are worse than me, half are better. I'd be okay with that. That's 50th, right? So if you're looking at this goalie, Jorge, right? And it's apparent, at first glance, it's pretty impressive. 92% of the shots were saved. That's exactly what they want to try to do. They want to trick you into saying he's pretty good. This puts him in the 10th percentile of the goalies in the league. So where is Jorge? Jorge is right here. Right? 10th is like you're not doing so well. So you would have to say here, referring to the percentile rank, Jorge's, you can actually just say percentile rank like that, is only 10, which means that only 10% of goalies did worse than him. Therefore, he's not one of the best. Sorry to break it to you, Jorge, but we gotta face the music, right? 10th percentile. Numbers don't lie, right? So 10th percentile. If you had been in the 90th, you're doing pretty good. But if you're low on the 10th, you're not doing so well. Same with tests, same with anything. Right? If your height puts you in the 90th percentile, that means that you're pretty tall, right? If your height puts you in the 10th percentile, you're not so tall, right? So just put it in that perspective. So this is how you should be thinking of percentile rank. Next. A train has 60 cars. Calculate the average load of one train car using weighted mean. That should ring a bell. Used based on the information in the table below. You know how you want to score easy 1 mark right off the bat? You go weighted mean, and you cross multiply these. You go 50 times 100 plus, you take the next cup pair, 10 times 80. Okay? And this is the kicker. What do I divide by? Which column am I going to divide by? And here's what I'm going to help you. If you multiply the cars and the load, you have this. Cars this is what you were doing this whole time. Look carefully. This is going to help you. You were multiplying the cars and the load, right? What do you want left over at the top? Read again. Calculate the average load, right? That means that you're going to need to have the cars down here because cars and cars will cancel out. Okay? So read the question. Like, how did I come up with these two? Well, that's what you always have to do. You always have to multiply them. And then you determine, is it going to be the total load or the total cars that go down here? It always goes back to the question, right? So now you take your train cars, 50 plus 10. That's what's going to go in the denominator. Do this in steps. So this is going to be 5,000. This is going to be 800 over 60. This is going to be 5,800 divided by 60. Cancel the zeros. That's as far as I go today with my mental math, right? 9667. And we're talking the load, right? You go back up here and it's in tons. That's my final answer. So 96.67 tons per car on average. Okay. So if this had been times traveled to work, right, in minutes and number of people, and they wanted the average time, you would divide by the number of people, right? Choose a letter that best represents the statement or completes the statement. Trimming the highest and the lowest values of the large data set will cause the median to, will it increase, decrease, stay the same, change, but it is impossible to tell by how much? What do you think is going to happen there? You remember me doing this? I don't want to do it again because it's going to get too short. But I'm going to show you. If this is your data set and you cut the same on each end, right? I was folding it and I cut off the same amount, the median stays the same, okay? The median doesn't change. Even though your data is getting shorter and shorter, the middle stays the middle. And so it stays the same, okay? You should remember this one. Good old times, right? Remember that the median goes first. The mode goes second. You can only use numbers 1 to 9. So the mode, because it's less than the median, it has to be on the left side. The mean, to get the mean, you just go 5 values times mean. That gives you a sum of 20 that you need, right? So 5 times 4, that means that the whole thing should add up to 20, right? That's how you get that. This chunk right here adds up to 7 already. So you just need a combination that gives you 13, right? So you can do 4 and 9, or you can do 5 and 8, but make sure they're in ascending order. Otherwise, it's wrong. Okay. 7 and 6, right? 7 and 6 would work too, so 6, 7. So any one of those would work in that case. Let's talk about 38. We're almost done here. So you have the data of number of kids that visited Maggie's house on Halloween. Explain why it would be better for Maggie to use the median rather than the mean to predict the number of kids next Halloween. And so the key here is to notice that this is an outlier. Okay, so outlier, right? It will affect the mean, right? It affects, I will say this, affects the mean, actually pulls it up. We don't have the option of mentioning trimmed mean, it's just the mean. So the mean is not a good value or calculation in this case because it would include the outlier. The median is the middle number, right? So I would just say this, median is better, comma, because the mean includes all values as well as the outlier. Man, run-on sentences, I probably wouldn't make it in an English class, but we're okay here, right? So the median is better because the mean includes all values as well as the outlier. You could go further saying the outlier will drag up your mean, giving an inaccurate picture of what's actually happening. Next, let's do some math here. Let's see if you can do percentile rank. Find percentile rank for Steelers. Would you be able to do that? And I will just give you the formula here. Percentile rank is B over N times 100. B represents the number of values lower than the one you're considering. N is the total number of values. See if you can do that. 2 marks if you know how to do that. Give it a try. Real quick. All right. Steelers is the one we're considering. Okay. So how many values are lower than 26? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So B is 5 values lower than 26. And we have 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay. So percentile rank, you take B divided by N times 100. Watch this, you get 62.5. You cannot have that, so you need to round either up or down to the nearest whole number because it's ranking, right? So 63rd, that's all you need to do there. You can write percentile after, but just 63rd is fine. That is the percentile rank. meaning, right, 63% of players scored less than Steelers, right? And we're talking specifically 26 goals, right? Because they might ask you, what does that mean? So Steelers okay? Steelers is okay, like above the median, right? It's okay. I would say average, right? How many are left? Oh, that's it. That's the last one. Can I just say something about percentile rank? It's about half-half. Sometimes they give you a table like that. Sometimes they tell you it's a word problem, right? So and so many students scored less than, Patrick out of 500 students. Calculate the percentile rank. So you just need to read and plug in. And sometimes it's a table where you have to actually go count how many values are lower than the one you consider, right? So keep that in mind. You have the green one. The green one is very good. I just looked it over again, and both answer keys are online. If you want a third booklet, this one is a while. This is pretty old, but there's January 2015, right? And just do those. You got to do some geometry yet, which I didn't spend a whole lot of time on, but I did spend time on Thursday. And this is it. Now it's all on you